Hello and welcome to Career Conversations. My name is Richard Weather. I am with the APH Connect Center, and welcome to another installment of Career Conversations. And today, Lori Scharf will be our interviewer, and Katie and myself will be here for support. And your questions are welcome in the chat feature as well as in the Q&A box. And we will get to your questions for our presenter within the next 20 to 30 minutes.
Thank you, Richard. I'm Lori Scharf with the APH Connect Center, and we are pleased to have Tanner Gers who is the managing director at Accessibility Officer. And Tanner, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, my pleasure to be here. I'm really excited. Thank you so much for having me.
Great. And in 2004, Tanner lost his vision as a result of an automobile accident. And prior to that, he was a competitive individual, it just, was his nature. And after his experience with vision loss, he got back up and began working on sports and started Sports for the Blind. He also is a Paralympian. And do you have anything that you would like to say about that period in your life, Tanner?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure we can get into that later, but yeah, I'm super pumped to be here. Thanks so much for the introduction, Lori.
Great. So let's start with our questions about your work. And can you tell us a little about your visual impairment and how your drive for success and your love for sports assisted you in your adjustment to blindness process? And any other thoughts that you have?
Yeah, awesome.
And I don't hear you, Tanner.
Oh, he just left the meeting.
Oh.
Okay. Well, we'll hang out just a moment. Tanner.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I can, yes.
All right, go ahead.
So thanks so much. So yeah. Oh, it says I can't start my video for some reason.
That's okay, Tanner. Go, you're fine.
Yeah. So yeah, I was just transitioning y'all from my mobile device to my desktop. So that was what was going on. But yeah, so I forget the question. You were talking about Paralympics, and then you teed it up. What we do now. So I'm managing director at Accessibility Officer. I've been in digital accessibility for almost 10 years now, and like Lori was saying, I really kind of got my start almost 20 years ago when I woke up in the hospital, totally blind from an auto accident. So I was totally sighted, never, well, I was diagnosed ADD before there was ever an H. And in high school, I was in the sound booth, so I got diagnosed with, hearing impairment when I was in high school, but I never really considered myself as having a disability until I woke up totally blind. And I found sports for the blind, really lucky that I found beat baseball. And that led me to the Paralympics. I was very, very fortunate to represent Team USA, which was pretty significant for me because when I lost my sight 20 years ago, I was in the enlistment process for the military. So having the opportunity to put the flag back on my chest was pretty special. So from the Paralympics, they have a great athlete career transition program, and I thought I exhausted every opportunity possible to me, at least in my local community. I even moved away to Phoenix, Arizona, from Tucson to try to find new opportunities. And lo and behold, I was placed in a remote position with a tech startup down in Tucson, selling accessibility job boards. And when I mean, digital access, if you're blind or you use AT, digital accessibility is right up in your face. But even though it was right there, it never really manifested in my mind that this could be a career opportunity for me. This could be something that could really make a difference, not just in my life, but others. And that was the beginning of my digital accessibility career.
Great. And what kind of assistive tech do you personally use?
I personally use JAWS, Narrator, and sometimes NVDA. So I'm a screen reader user, totally
Hmm.
blind, no visual acuity.
Hmm. Okay, so you're using it then with speech output?
Yeah, I use
Hmm.
screen reader speech output. I also use voiceover on my iPhone. So primarily, I use my desktop or laptop computer. Strongly encourage anyone who's really serious about a career to really focus on their AT skills as it relates to the desktop or the laptop. That's where work happens. But yeah, but speech output via screen reader
Hmm.
on my desktop, laptop, and mobile device.
Great. Thank you for making that point. I know that frequently I see on uh, from TVIs, teachers of the visually impaired, and sometimes from parents that their children are learning to use note takers. And, um, I always strongly encourage people to have access to a laptop or desktop because they really are essential parts of the working world.
Yeah, I mean, competitive integrated employment today, unless you're a social media influencer, is not going to be possible outside of a desktop or a laptop.
Hmm. That's true. Yeah. So, what really motivated you to start Accessibility Officer in 2021?
So entrepreneurship has always, just kind of been inside of me. Ever since I was a kid, everything from washing cars to mowing lawns to selling baseball cards. Even if you guys remember Pogs, I monetized Pogs back in the day. I would post up shop on a golf course, a public golf course, and built my little business from water bottles to sodas, chips, candy bars, the whole thing until we got kicked out of there. I was always interested in building some business, and I have started multiple businesses as a totally blind person. I've had a consulting business. I've had an online fitness business that was pretty successful that I shut down. I had two different used auto businesses. Yes, blind used car salesman. I loved being in the pit and buying cars at auction next to the other dealers and buyers. I had a lot with an office and cars on it. I've done a lot of different businesses, and for whatever reason, I never focused on building a business around something that was really so close to me, like digital accessibility. But when at the time, well, before I launched Accessibility Officer, I my first tester role was at a nonprofit called My Blind Spot, based out of New York. A couple promotions later, there I was executive director. So I went from knowing like really what it is in the trenches to be a tester, to be like a manager of that or a director of that, and then to really kind of build out that consultancy. And we almost ended up selling that consultancy to another large agency here in the United States. That deal fell through, but after that, I went over to the American Foundation for the Blind and started working on building that digital accessibility consultancy. From there, I went into the private sector for a company called UsableNet, and I was building out their partnership program. I was head of partnerships there. And all of that to say is that I really understood what it meant to build, grow, and sustain a digital accessibility practice from the technical perspective, well enough, and to the sales perspective, the account perspective, and just the mechanics of what it means to run a digital accessibility agency. So with that confidence, I started accessibility officer in experience, confidence and experience. I started that in 2021. It was always important for me to hire blind, and you know I got my shot as a tester, and I wanted to give other people theirs. So I really couldn't though find the skills, like the individuals, the talent, the people with the technical skill or ability to do the job at the level in which it needed to be done. They were there, but they were diamonds in the rough, and I couldn't really systematically source anybody. And if you have clients looking for, trying to pay you for work and you don't have anybody to do it, that's an issue. So my partner and I, Heather Burns, based out of Charlotte, North Carolina, built a training program, so that people who are totally blind, we started with totally blind population, just screen reader users, and we've built that out to low vision, deaf blind, and different levels of deaf blindness. But we started with screen reader users and pulled them through the Department of Homeland Security's trusted tester certification for Section 508 assurance or compliance, and then also our WCAG 2.1, now 2.2 CAT certification. So for those who don't know, that's basically the trusted tester. So you can do government work for a federal contractor or a direct agency itself, a municipality. And then everything else, private sector, digital accessibility consultancy stuff, you're going to need to know more, have more success criteria, more standards, more things that you know. And that's what the CAT 2.2, the now 2.2 certification is. So we built that program. We started out, we piloted it with Helen Keller National Center in New York. That was super successful. We now do that across the nation. And so that was it. We started this digital accessibility consultancy with a focus on blindness employment, and everything that we do at Accessibility Officers is in alignment with our vision, which as an organization is that the U.S. disabled unemployment rate is the same as the U.S. unemployment rate. And for those, everybody here knows that that means we got to get a lot of blind people jobs, right? So that's why we focus there, and that's what we do.
Great. So Ken, I looked at your website and I saw that you do services both for businesses, individuals, and services for clients of vocational rehabilitation. Can you talk a little about the different areas of that?
Yeah, great question. So we're a digital accessibility consultancy first. I think, you know, having a successful digital accessibility consultancy allows us as an organization the flexibility and agility, the opportunity to support very marginalized and underrepresented communities in employment. It costs money to skill up, train up, and get people where they need to be. I mean, vocational rehabilitation gets paid to provide those services, but often they're not complete, they're not holistic, and the gaps we find are really just on the job. So many individuals that come to us really are lacking in some of the really foundational skills required to retain employment. Maybe they can demonstrate the skills to get the job, but the soft skills to navigate the job and retain it,
Mhm.
that's a different story. So we're a digital accessibility consultancy first. So we provide services to businesses across audits, accessibility managed services, software, training, and of course, our staffing solutions, temporary or full RPO, which is a recruitment service. And so we do that first. And then on top of that or behind it is we have our vocational rehabilitation services. So we have our job training, the CAT program, and then we also have our Getting Hired playbook, which is how to self-source interviews and job opportunities so that yeah, you can get jobs from companies that you actually want to work for. So those are the two VR programs we have: the GHP, Getting Hired Playbook, and the CAT program, the Certified Accessibility Testing Program. We make that CAT program, we make that available to individuals as well. That's the other. So we have businesses, individuals, and VR, and individuals is for other individuals with technical backgrounds, those without disabilities, people who want to get into the digital accessibility field. We offer the CAT program to them as well, but just in a different model.
Great. So what would you say are some of the areas that companies struggle with regarding their lack of digital accessibility?
I mean, the core reasons, I mean, there's quite a few,
Mm-hmm.
and just depends on the type of company, their operations, what they do, their employees, like how they operate. For example, one of our, we have enterprise government customers, and so those customers have different needs and different problems and are in a different situation for different reasons with regards to digital accessibility. They know about it and there's still problems. That's a completely different issue. However, we have other private sector customers, maybe like online retailers. We have a really great customer here locally in Arizona, called Dazzle Dry is their brand name. The company's name is VB Cosmetics, and they produce really awesome nail polish, and they got hit with a lawsuit, just didn't know about digital accessibility, really had a social inclusion program, we're trying to do all the right things, just didn't know about digital accessibility. So while both of those organizations or those customers per se don't have appropriate training, they're not technically trained in how to perform audits or testing or remediate websites. They don't know how to do it. But some have the bandwidth and others don't, right? Well, the government agencies definitely have the resource bandwidth to do it, but just no budget's created. Whereas, these online retailers, whether or not there's budget, they just don't have the bandwidth. They don't have the technical expertise. They don't have people allocated to do this. So it really depends on the customer, but I would say that first is awareness. You got to know that the problem exists or that there's a problem there. Two is you got to be aware or understand technically, what's driving the problem, how to solve the problem, and then how to monitor and maintain that going forward, so that once you resolve these issues, you can continue to maintain your compliance. And then the real big thing is that there's a detachment with the disability community that stems from an employment situation, right? The underemployment of people with disabilities, right? The more when I'm out in conferences and stuff, and people say, yeah, we know this is a problem. As a matter of, I know digital accessibility is a problem. And I'm like, really? I was like, have you ever met a blind person before? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, what's their name? And that's what you hear is nothing, because there's a real separation between the corporate world mostly. It's not everybody. This is broad strokes that I'm making. There's a
Mm-hmm.
there's a separation between the corporate world and the disability community, and that separation, that gap is shortening or getting less wide. It's not widening, but it is there. And you know, until we start to change that, which is one of the reasons why I'm so insanely focused on employment. And I really feel that this is employment, people with disabilities getting jobs, especially those with severe disabilities like blindness, and then succeeding in those roles, working side by side in the workplace. That is how we're going to really change social consciousness about what it means to be a person with a disability and what we can do in employment.
Great. So, do you work at all beyond digital accessibility for websites? Do you look at other aspects of maybe a company's level of accessibility?
Yeah, it's a great question. We would call that disability readiness.
Mm-hmm.
And most certainly. So an intranet or the internal facing websites, right? Like we have a SharePoint website, if anybody understands that. And that's basically like one of our internal websites that we have where we share updates or provide internal resources. So people making sure that their intranets are accessible. And then their internal web applications or softwares, the things that we use to do our job. So, internally at Accessibility Officer, we use applications like Asana, Otter, Zoom, um, Microsoft products, um, you know, different applications like this. And we have our own software too called Dart, right? So all of those applications need to be assessed for accessibility and really procured, purchased with accessibility in mind. So yeah, we help organizations across the internal facing applications. We help organizations with their documents and electronic files, how to communicate with accessibility in mind, and um, how to meet people remotely, how to do that. So yeah, from document remediation to internal websites and web applications, those tools that we use to do the job, to the public facing websites, to the technical trainings, and even the annual trainings. We're really getting good traction now with some of our enterprise clients on adopting digital accessibility trainings as a part of onboarding.
Mhm.
Um, and they're really resonating with the messages that, hey, if we don't set the expectation for digital accessibility from the start, this is how we do things at this company, then you're really setting yourself up for failure for longitudinal success in accessibility compliance.
Yeah, I have to say I've been there before. You know, you start a job and on day one, a training's not accessible. Um, it happens. And it doesn't feel very welcoming. So what would you say are one or two critical skills that someone who is blind or low vision should have when looking at a career in digital accessibility?
Oh, specific to digital, like, are you saying, Lori, like, hey, like, is this a right field for me? Am I
Yes.
consider? Oh, gotcha. So, um, digital accessibility is a unique career, because it requires ongoing commitment to excellence, right? What do I mean by that? Is that you have to be, well, as a person with a disability, you got to be great at you've got to be skilled, right? Because we're competing against people that don't have the same barriers or hardships or difficulties that we do, right? They're going to go faster in general. And so we've got to find all the right ways, all the different ways, all the awesome ways that we can go faster, be better, and do things differently. So digital accessibility, as technology changes, so does accessibility standards, right? So as the emergence of AI, with the emergence of augmented reality, with the metaverse, those things in the future, digital accessibility will adapt to those. There will be regulations, laws, and so what does that mean as a tester? That means you have to learn those environments. You have to expose yourself to that. So digital accessibility is not for those who want to cruise control or want like a passive career that kind of just show up, clock in, clock out, and go home. That's not digital accessibility. Digital accessibility is like a puzzle that's always ongoing, and it's a collaborative effort where you're working with other individuals to try to figure out how to solve this puzzle. And then what's even better is you get to teach people about how to solve all their puzzles and their problems. And so, um, critical thinking, technical skills, being okay with ambiguity, like uncertainty, trying to feel like, hey, I know there's a problem here. I'm not really sure what it is. Detail orientation, really strong computer skills. You don't have to be techie, right? You will learn the language, but you do have to have like that curiosity mindset, that you're going to search and find the problem, and then you're going to deliver a solution.
Great. So before I pass it over to Katie and Richard for any questions they have and questions from our audience, um, do you have any final tips that you would want to share? Maybe a word of wisdom or something?
Yeah. Yes, I mean, so many. So I think that, if you're thinking about employment, like number one, if you're thinking about employment before digital accessibility is like, just understand that employers like hire people to solve problems, and they're willing to pay a price for that problem. If you can solve that problem, they're going to pay a price for that value. And that's why companies hire employees. You are paid money to solve problems. Maybe that problem is customer service. Maybe that problem is sales. Maybe that problem is accounting. Maybe that problem is digital accessibility. But you've got to make sure whatever skills, values, things that you bring to the table are more valuable than the dollar exchange that an employer is willing to pay you for them, right? If you can get focused on that, right, then you can really start to understand like, oh, how do I map my value, my training, my efforts, my ongoing commitment to my personal self and professional development? I can map that back to a job. I can map that back to a career. I can map that back to my employer and consistently provide more and more value, right? businesses are in the business of making money, and they're going to pay you to help them do that. And so if you can help them make more money than they're paying you, i.e. providing value, then you're going to be pretty secure in a job. The second thing that I would say is that never get comfortable, like always push yourself. You can always better your best. And I really made the mistake early on of thinking about it's all about what you know. It's all about what you know. If I get another degree, if I get another certification, if I do this, if I do that. And I thought that I knew everything, right? And I'm throwing up some pretty generous air quotes there. But what you know doesn't open doors. What you know does not open doors. You know what it took me to get that? The guy at my blind spot gave me a shot. And he gave me a shot because I reached out to him and I said, hey, I'm the best person. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to show you that I'm going to be the best for you. And then I showed up and I did it. And that guy opened up a door for me. People open up doors. So how you provide value to people, how you show up for other people, how you put your name on something, that's what really matters. So get out there, get networking, start providing value, and show other people what you can do, because it's people who make things happen.
Great, thank you. Richard and Katie, let's move it over to you, the two of you, for questions.
Lori, great questions, and Tanner, great conversation. You answered many of the questions I was going to ask just by responding to Lori, and I think you hit on the curiosity thing, which is you have to really remain curious and push yourself out of your comfort zone. I've done that over my career span of the past quarter century, and networking, another important thing. And you talked about that and putting yourself out there and holding yourself accountable. Where do you think job seekers fall short? Where do you think they fall short in terms of not getting the job that they hope so much for, that they're thinking they're the best candidate?
Two big things. One is understanding that value relationship, that, hey, if I'm getting paid $100,000, I better be providing $200,000 in value. Right. That's how you become like a desired, a sought after employee. And so, are you going to earn your keep? The other thing is like, I think that job seekers today really don't strategically understand how to map their value to the needs of employers in a dollarized way. Right. In our Getting Hired playbook, after we get people's like business profiles and their kind of like branding set up, is the first thing we do is strategic planning and tactical roadmaps. The ability to create a strategy and then the tactics to execute on that strategy is a skill that is not taught anywhere, really anywhere. And it is so insanely valuable. Because on paper, if you can really begin to understand like how you're going to do things, why it's important, and what you're going to target. It's like, hey, I want a job. Okay, well, what kind of job? Okay, well, in call center customer service. Okay, well, like, how are you going to align? What's the strategy for that? Are you going to be reaching out to call centers like in your local area? How are you going to be reaching out to them? Who are you going to be reaching out to them? What are you going to say when you reach out? It's like the very basic strategic planning and tactical roadmap development. If I could impress one thing on to everybody today, it's like, if you get better at that, you're going to change your life. You're going to change your life.
Thank you. And we're very excited that in a future webinar with you, we're going to go deep into your Getting Hired playbook. So thank you for that, and for kind of teasing out what it's all about. Katie, do you have any questions? And I think we have one or so in the Q&A.
Yeah, so I guess I would just wonder, Tanner, if you could talk a little bit about, you mentioned being, an entrepreneur is something that was kind of ingrained in you, and that aspect. Can you talk a little bit about starting a business as a person who's blind, and maybe what that looked like, or what some obstacles or lessons learned from that would be for people who might be considering that as a career path?
Totally. I'm gonna talk briefly about entrepreneurship, and then I'll get into entrepreneurship. So if you guys have never heard that term before, intrapreneurship and then entrepreneurship. So entrepreneurship is like me going out and building my own business, but intrapreneurship is like I want entrepreneurs in my business, right? I want people who think about my business like it is their business, right? Who are looking for operational efficiencies, who are trying to solve bigger problems that not just come to me with problems, but they say, hey, here's a problem, here's the solution, here's why I think we should do this, right? That's entrepreneurship, taking ownership of the job that you're in, taking ownership of the relationship that it has to the business and the outcomes, and again, the value that you're bringing to the organization. Entrepreneurship. So if you're not into entrepreneurship, you can be an entrepreneur. You can take ownership of your role, your job, the influence that it has on the organization, and capitalize on that. Believe you me, your managers, your boss, your owners, they will recognize that, and you will be rewarded handsomely. And entrepreneurship is one of the most difficult things you can do in life. There's a reason why so many businesses fail. But at the same time, it is the most rewarding thing that I can possibly do. I'm stressed out to the gills. I have so much weight on my shoulders. I've got families that rely on me, people's careers, and their future prospects and what they want to do with their lives ride on me. And you don't have to absorb that kind of responsibility as an entrepreneur. You could be a solopreneur, just you doing your thing and having a lifestyle business. But understand that entrepreneurship is the hardest thing that I've ever done before. I've failed, like I said, I failed multiple businesses before this. This just happens to be the first time where I got it right. And believe me, I go hard. You know, I failed. So, I mean, even in this business, like I failed so many times. People have told me no. My back's been against the wall. I've been down to no money and not sure how I'm going to do how I'm going to do it. I don't know. And just having that ambiguity, that uncertainty, that fear, if you're willing to handle that, then entrepreneurship might be right for you. If you're willing to get kicked in the teeth and eat dirt until it tastes good, entrepreneurship might be right for you. Yeah. So, yeah.
No, I agree. Having in my many careers back, having been a rehabilitation counselor, the self-employment cases are what people want, but they're the hardest things to achieve. And we go in there with that discussion, like, are you ready for this? Because the chance of you succeeding is going to be low, but we're here to support you. So thank you for that feedback.
Yeah. And that's why I mentioned the entrepreneurship, right? Like you can, if you've got, air quotes, like entrepreneurial, like tendencies or thoughts or ideas, like you can take that passion internally at another organization.
Yeah.
There's places for that. And it's rewarded, you're rewarded for that kind of ownership.
Yeah, and entrepreneurship is becoming a very common path to employment for people with disabilities. Um, so it definitely is something that people can consider, but you have to be prepared for the flip side of it, which
It's not a
is
40-hour
all the
work week.
stressors. It's stressful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it's like, I'm self-funded. I don't have venture capital. I don't have investors in the business. And so like literally it's like my bank account's going down. I'm paying people and it's like, well, I guess like I got to figure it out, it's like, and so, that's, if you're most individuals here might get some support from VR, maybe you get some family money and you got to, and then think about that pressure, right? Like owing people money. Holy cow. And now you've got to, it's like, it's a lot of pressure. So it takes the right personality, it takes the right person, and know that, I can't even remember the statistics, but it's like 1 out of 20 businesses are still in business after like 3 years.
True.
So, but at the same time, I love entrepreneurship. I would much rather die on my own sword than die because I got laid off,
Right.
you know, or that some other business. It's like, I don't like not having that kind of control myself. I love controlling my own performance. I love working for other people, but that is a different type of stress that's not right for me. Me with my back against the wall, against the world, I'm ready for that challenge. But I say that with over a decade of entrepreneurial losing. So me losing all of my money and then rebuilding it back up to start a new business, that's something that I've done before. So multiple multiple times. And but at the same time, on the flip side for me, it's like, man, you know, I say every time a blind person gets a job, an angel gets its wings. Like that
Yes,
moment
I
for
saw
me.
that on your website and I'm like, what a lovely quote.
That moment for me makes all, it's like, you can even hear it in my tonality, right? It's like I've had a long day. It's kind of like blah, 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 and then I start talking about blind people getting jobs, and I can't help myself.
Right.
Right. Tanner, before we go to the Q&A, which there are a couple, where do you hope to see accessibility offers or in the next 3 to 5 years?
Great question. So we want to expand this model, what we call the CAT model, out into different industries. You know, our vision, the U.S. disabled unemployment rate is the same as the U.S. unemployment rate. And I feel like in order to really, I don't think we're going to do that in my lifetime. If we do that, it would be amazing. But the catalyst for that is getting people with severe disabilities in jobs when they're set up for success. In career, it's not perfect. I'm not saying it is, but in career paths that we know people who are blind can succeed in, right? Things like accounting, things like legal, things like cyber, things like digital accessibility, things like contract closeout management, right? Things like IT tech support, things like software engineering. And those might not be your mustards, right? But those are the mustards that I'm thinking about spreading accessibility officer into, where I started in digital accessibility because that's what I know, right? But I'm trying to figure out cyber. I'm trying to figure out these next things where I can build a business there and then put in those training programs on the tail side so that we can get talent into those jobs. I can give them a job and then we can help them transition into the industry. The more people with severe disabilities that are working, not for me, but for the general population, the more people we can do that and succeed, competitive integrated employment, like, I don't know what that tipping point is going to be, but when we're more integrated into the workforce, according to our percentages, like if 18% of the population working was someone with a disability, right? Like it was actually representative of who we are. I think that's things. We're no longer going to have terms like deaf, dumb, or blind, right? Like we're like, you better be deaf, dumb, or blind. Like we're below dumb, WTF, right? And that's because every day people go to work and they don't see people like us kicking butt and taking names right next to them.
Yeah. Thank you. Katie,
Yeah.
are we ready?
We are ready.
Oh man, I'm getting so fired up, Katie. Thanks.
So our first question is, you mentioned a training center in North Carolina, and the person is wondering if training only occurs in person.
No, so my partner is based in Charlotte, North Carolina, Heather Burns. That's where she's physically located. But all of our trainings, the Getting Hired Playbook, the CAT program, and our future trainings are going to be 100% remote. They are all 1000% remote.
Awesome. And as we talked a little bit about the entrepreneur path, do you find it helpful for people if they're seeking to become entrepreneurs to have a mentor?
Yeah, I mean, you know, hacking other people's knowledge is the way. Do you want to
Yeah.
grind for 30 years and figuring out along the way, or do you want to take someone's 30 years of experience and data dump it into you? You know, get guidance along the way. surrounding yourself with people who have been there, that have done that, that are behind you, what you're trying to do, that is the fastest, that's the best hack.
Oh yeah.
And guess, I heard this recently. It was something like, it was like, uh, information that's so simple is often like some of the best advice. And the individuals like, but you can't really sell that, right? It's just so basic. And then the individuals with all the wisdom, all the experience in the world, they don't want to sell that information. They just want to give it away, right? They want to help other people. So if you can find those people that have all that experience that are willing to give it to you, heck yeah. Again, it's what I said earlier. It's people who open doors.
And your mentors could be somebody who's blind or low vision, and your mentor could be somebody that's in the industry you're looking to work in.
Highly recommend both. I
Yeah.
use both. Yeah.
Any other
Those are all
questions?
the questions we have right now.
So to our
Awesome.
audience, we've got a few more minutes. If you want to put in a question to the Q&A for Tanner and or in the chat, we're happy to field them for you. Quite a dynamic portfolio there, Tanner, doing some good things. And again, we can't wait to have you on to talk more about your Getting Hired playbook with Marianne and others in a few weeks. Do you, if folks want to communicate with you, are you on LinkedIn, and do you want to give out your webpage?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm definitely on LinkedIn. That's the social media platform I'm on the most. If you search for Tanner Geers, or if you know the URL, it's linkedin.com/IN for individual, IN/Tanner Geers, TANNER GERS. Follow me there, or message me. I'm as like, unless we're a secondary connection and you have a pro account, you may not be able to like actually send a connection request to me. But follow me, I'll get that notification and I'll send you a connection request. Um, if you're a job seeker, you need to be on LinkedIn, flat out, and connect with me. I would love to introduce you to anybody in my network that can help out. And specific to that GHP training, the Getting Hired playbook, you should definitely come to that. If you're an active job seeker, I'm going to give you everything that I can in less than 60 minutes. And if you implement that stuff, you're going to be light years ahead of where you are right now in just a couple of weeks. So definitely show up for that.
Fantastic. Haiti or Lori, any other questions from yourself or the audience?
I don't have any more that I can think of. But if anybody has some last minute questions, feel free to type in the chat or the Q&A box and Katie will read them out. It's been a real pleasure getting to know you, Tanner, and thank you for all of your fantastic words of wisdom and advice and sharing with everybody about both your journey to employment and entrepreneurship, and also how you're assisting people with blindness and low vision, how you can become active in the digital accessibility field.
Yeah, absolutely. If you guys are interested in learning more about the digital accessibility opportunities, we provide a lot of free stuff at accessibilityofficer.com. That's AccessAbiltyOfficer.com. So two A's, access and then abilityofficer.com. We have a careers page on there. We post open job positions in digital accessibility, so that you can get an idea of the salary ranges, what you're looking at there. Entry level positions for full time are starting around $50,000 per year, about 25 bucks an hour. And 3 to 5 years experience, you're looking at around 80 to 100. There's training programs that we have where our CAT programs launch about every other month. We just launched one earlier today. We had 7 new students out of New York coming into the program today. So we're super excited about that. If you're interested in a digital accessibility career and you have an open case with vocational rehabilitation, there's no cost to you to join the program. Just have yourself or your vocational rehabilitation counselor reach out to us on the website at accessibilityofficer.com/vocational rehabilitation. If you just click vocational rehabilitation at the top of the website, it'll take you to the page where you can submit a form, a short form, and we'll reach out to you. The like I was saying, our apprenticeship program, we pay our testers $25 an hour to start, and really try to create a career advancement pathway from I had mentioned the CAT model, the certify, apprentice, and transition. So if you're interested in a career in digital accessibility or more information there, definitely check out accessibilityofficer.com.
Once again, thank you for everyone for participating in Career Conversations.